Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
About beach volleyball.
Knowledge,
about beach volleyball. Because I think other countries do this, but how do we feel about the federation creating our teams for us
I've thought about that a lot.
versus us, some of our teams, all of our teams,
Yeah.
kind of forming their own
I think
teams.
Yeah.
the federations that pick them.
Sounds like you don't agree with the current teams. No.
Not necessarily,
Gotcha.
but I've always wondered, like, why do some countries do it that way
Yeah.
versus we kind of give ourselves a little bit more freedom?
Yeah.
And where at the end of the day, our jobs are to win medals and
Yeah.
compete and putting the best players on the floor or the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I think.
Oof. I think I'm gonna get like.
You're gonna catch a lot of
No,
heat for
we
that.
actually because once a month or so we'll open it up to fan questions and we get that one a fair amount. And I think if USA were to pay the players a livable wage, I think it'd be totally fair to do that. But I think if you're only able to pay like a pretty small percentage of what it takes to live and compete, then I don't know if they can necessarily take over a player's right to choose who they're going to play with. Because I think the federations who do choose, that's their job.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Versus there are maybe 4 to 6 men's players in the US who just play beach volleyball and don't have to do a side hustle.
I think the U.S. is unique in that the players kind of started the international tour and the federation and all that. So like we just started that way where they just kind of put their own teams together and then they go and then they figured out how to get funding from USA Volleyball. And so I think it's just how it's been is the biggest thing. And then we've had success. So like, I think Carrie and Misty and them, definitely Carrie, I remember or that generation was definitely like when USA Volleyball tried to come in and kind of like see how much pull they could have. They're like, no, we're choosing like this is just how it's going to be. And like she was dominating the world. So it made sense, right? You're not going to tell me to break up with Misty. I'm going to play with April after whatever. Not that we would have made those teams anyway, but I think it's just how it's been, to be honest. And I think since I've been here, it started with, we were all kind of thinking that way. Like, no, we want to choose. To nowadays, I don't think much of us veterans are like very opposed to it, but I haven't seen much change within the national team, like where they're looking to make big changes and even just step in and be like, hey, we think this is what's best for the national team, so we're going to do this. It's kind of just like, this is how it's been. This is what the handbook looks like. So we're going to do that. And it's hard for as a player, like, would you ever just be like, hey, we want you to choose instead? Probably not. Like it needs to come from the national team. And the other federations were all made in this way. Like the federation was made and they're like, okay, we're going to get these players together and we're going to make the teams. And, I think if the federation came first, then they decided what the teams were. And if it was the opposite, then the players.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's ever changed, if any of the federations have gone from one to the other.
It's really interesting about the financial piece that Beach should probably step up a little bit and probably help you guys out a little bit more. And then they could feel like they could have a little bit more control over it.
Well, there's also talks about I don't know how much is out in the public, but I know there's talks about the, what do they call it? Unified Training Center, right? So bringing sitting, indoor, and beach all to one place that's not in California potentially, and everyone lives there and everyone trains there.
Oh, you'd have to go if you
want to be on the national team. You're going to be out there. You got to go train there with the national team.
Got it.
I don't know if that means that they're going to put the teams together. I think it makes sense though. I think it's not totally wrong. Like also like you should have the most informed, best people making these decisions, right? I mean, every other sport does it pretty much.
Yeah. I think that's a great question though. And I think about that a lot. And I wonder how different the teams would look.
Like weekly.
Yeah. What do you think?
I wonder about it all the time.
I freaking love your mind.
Like I mean, we've talked, I'm just a beach fan.
Yeah.
And I watch beach. I watch the FIVB.
Do you want to say what teams you wish
No,
you could see?
I don't.
You have them in your mind.
I actually don't.
Yeah, I got you.
maybe I would have loved to see a Phil Taylor Crab last quad.
Right. I
Something
think a
like
lot
that.
of people would have liked to see that.
Just for one example.
For
But
sure.
I think about it, but I don't think about what teams I would want, actually.
Right.
But
who's your favorite team?
try.
Yes. Eric's sneaky on top of it.
I know my stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I do
points,
know about points and
staying up to
finishes
date with me.
and qualies.
Tried to send me
points.
some inspirational text to get me over this hump.
I
And
love
then
that.
I was
Got
like, oh,
this.
damn it.
I love that.
But I never thought about the financial part of it and the kind of control that a federation can have over you with their finances. But I don't know. Every other team, you never choose your other teams. Like, I don't choose our team.
Right.
I don't think in any other sport you've ever been able to choose. But beach, it is one-on-one. But I also wonder, I think we've all known some teams that have been successful, but they're not always on the same page. They're not like these super close people.
A team that you would put together. Like, no one would put together a Trev and Theo maybe,
Right.
or I guess Budding or Miles makes sense on paper, but like there's certain teams that work that a coaches maybe never would have put together. It's just the players that would have seen
That's
that.
what I was thinking. I think that if
even me and Trev wouldn't, that was a weird partnership to put together.
Like, and I think at the beginning of this quad, that if I were the guy picking teams for USA, like, or anybody, I don't think they would have kept Kristen and Taryn together. I think they would have said, Kristen, you're going to go with Kelly Chang. Taryn, you're going to go with Sarah Sponsel. We're going to split you, divide and conquer. And then you have two freaking elite teams. I don't think anybody would have put Miles Partain with Andy Benish with where Andy was at the time.
Right.
And I think the fact that like Kristen and Taryn just owned it and stuck it out when like no one was saying that was going to work, including me.
Yeah.
And now you have the number 2 team in the world, Kelly and Syracuse. I think that could have happened
for sure
if someone was picking it. But Andy and Miles, I don't think many people would have said, yeah, like those are our guys.
Yeah.
And that worked out. So it's hard. I don't know how I'd be really interested to see how it would work. I think it'd have to be like a committee.
I mean, this is me being completely out of the beach world and just spewing random thoughts. But
makes for the best conversations, though.
Who knows? But like I said, I'm really just a fan. I watch beach tournaments all the time.